All right. It says it's recording, so hopefully it actually is, but I didn't hear the warning go off. So let's hope it's actually recording. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Start my timer here. And there we go. Okay. I'm going to be speaking about building effective speech. This could be literally giving a speech in public, but it can also just be interacting with people effectively. What we will cover, effective speech prep and delivery based on these factors: intended audience, the end goal or purpose of your speech, what things to include, what things to avoid, and how to close. To start off with, I want to open the forum up. What is the best speech that you can remember and what made it so great? Emily, what do you think?
Okay, so this is like not necessarily the best, but one of the better ones I've heard recently. I got to hear the speakers at my sister's graduation, and one of the student speakers, he was the student who did their morning announcements. So he themed his whole speech like he was giving his final announcement to the class that he was graduating with, and he made it really personal and like that connection with him and his friends and classmates. And so even being in the audience, not having heard this student give an announcement in a school day ever, you could tell how much he cared and he was happy and proud of everyone. And so you felt that in the audience from how he taught, and he made it a very personal connection.
Nice. Abigail or Abby?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of copy you, but I had this idea ahead of time. So I have helped at the last 5 Southwest high school graduations. And the first one I went to, it was COVID graduation. And I will never forget the student that gave their graduation speech. She was very musical and artsy, and she tied like popular songs into her speech, and like just the way she laid it out. Like I still 5 years and 10 speeches later still remember her speech. Like just the way she presented it was fabulous.
Awesome. Lydia, what do you think?
I can't really think of anything.
Nothing at all. No speech has ever affected you, or even a speech that you've heard before. Any speech at all.
Um,
There was a guy named Martin Luther King. He was sort of
I've heard that one.
Yeah, okay. So you have heard a speech. All right, cool. We'll come back to these speeches though. Thank you guys for sharing that. We're going to move on and start off with your audience and how it affects your preparation and delivery. There's basically 2 types of audiences: informal audiences and formal audience. On the informal side, you might have friends, family members, social groups, classmates, like random passersby. These are not people that you've scheduled time with. It's not somebody that you've been invited to speak with. It's not something that is a make or break. The way you talk to your family members and your friends might be different in a way, but they're also extremely similar. Not very goal oriented either. These are conversations. Even if you're presenting a vacation idea to your family members, you're still doing it in a much more laid back manner. However, on the formal side, you might have customers if you're a business owner or a salesperson, classmates if you're presenting a paper or a presentation like we're doing now. So your superiors, so your boss, maybe a teacher if you're in the military. Subordinates would be your employees, military as well, or when you're a teacher, your own students, and then anyone whose time you have reserved. The moment you schedule something to deliver a message to somebody, or to take a moment of their time, it has now become a formal audience. So what's the difference in communicating to these different audiences? Do you think informal or formal audiences require a great deal of preparation? What would you guys think?
Formal.
Formal.
Yes.
Formal.
What about a high degree of professionalism?
Formal.
Or informal? Formal. You guys are high school students, by the way. You're like ninth graders.
Oh, perfect.
Jocular, and since ninth graders won't know what that means, it means joking, having fun, maybe a high degree of some sort of humorous element or just kind of laid back. Would that be informal or formal?
Informal.
Can we say both?
You can. Well
I feel
done.
like there's formal speeches that
Yeah.
have humor in them.
Just like the announcements graduation speech that Em mentioned, I'm sure that was fairly funny to almost everybody who listened to it. It took on a manner of delivery that Em wasn't familiar with any of the inside jokes, any of the procedures that this speaker had delivered. However, it was very jocular and it was extremely effective. It's something that she remembered sometime later. Usage of slang, informal or formal?
Informal.
Right. And then what about shared knowledge? And by that, it's like talking in a certain language that only people you're delivering to would know. Is that informal or formal?
Like for sure informal, but I think it depends on the formal
Sure. You go for it.
aspect. If it's like a meeting with my superior, we probably have shared knowledge.
Of course. If you're talking with your family members, you know what difficulties they're having. If you're talking about planning that vacation, you know, you're presenting an idea, same thing. It's what have you guys done before? What was successful about a previous vacation? What made it unsuccessful? How can we plan every detail, etc. So shared knowledge is something that can be present in both, but it also might be completely absent in either. If you were reporting on something brand new or presenting an idea that was completely unfamiliar, that could be a no in either spot, but you would have to meter your delivery when you're giving that to make sure that your audience understands. So moving on, what is the goal of your speech? You can ask yourself these questions. What is my end goal? If you're trying to persuade something or somebody to do something, your end goal is to get them to come to the conclusion that you want. If it's to inform somebody, you want them to learn. If it's to entertain somebody, you want to get them to laugh or be on the edge of their seats, so focused on your message that they can't take their eyes off of you. What do I need to know to get there? What do you need to know about your audience? What do you need to know about your message or how it's being received? Are people distracted? Are they, maybe looking at their phones? Are they distracted by a beautiful sunset, the heat in the room, the humidity, bugs, the fact that they can't see your visual aid? Maybe there's someone very tall in a 10-gallon hat sitting right in front of them and they can't see what you're presenting. What do they need to know to get there? If you're trying to persuade somebody to do something, what do they need to know to get to that idea? We should go to Yellowstone National Park for vacation this year. What do they need to know? The dates that it's available, the cost. Are we flying or driving? Where are we going to stay? Is it in a cabin? Or are we going to camp? What will we do when we get there? Those are the ideas that they need to know to arrive to getting excited about that potential idea or reject it. So possible items to include is a thesis statement. This sounds a little silly if you were with your friends and you're trying to get them to agree to go to a movie, right? Oh, I want to see this one specific movie and I'm going to persuade my friends that this is the movie I want to see. So I'm going to make this big thesis statement. This is a Rotten Tomatoes 100% rating. It's on the IMDb top 250 list. It's the #1 movie in America. Everybody's been talking about it. This is why we should go see this movie. A closing statement after you've delivered your message. why not summarize the points that you've touched on and go back to them, not in some sort of long fashion, but maybe just as a way to fully complete and tie the knot on what you're saying. Any citations, just like I said, Rotten Tomatoes, it's 100%. IMDb, it's a top 250 movie. It's the #1 movie in America. You're citing perceptions, you're citing research, you're citing critical scores to get someone to persuade them to go to that. Any visual aids, maybe you can show them a trailer of the movie. You can show them pictures of people that are in the movie, get them excited about it, and ask them any questions. Have you guys seen the first movie in this series? Have you ever seen anything by this director? He's amazing. Christopher Nolan. You haven't seen Oppenheimer? Oh, he did The Prestige. He did The Dark Knight. He did all these other great movies. You like those? Oh, then you're gonna love Oppenheimer. You're creating something where you're getting them to participate. You're getting them interested and therefore they're more focused on your message. Should you include gossip, rumors, or call outs? No, horrible idea. The moment you start to add any sort of negativity to your message, or you say things that aren't citable, they're not proven, that's the exact moment when somebody starts to doubt your message. If I was going to deliver a message about how the earth is round and I start talking for 10 minutes in length about some flat earther, all of a sudden people are going to start doubting me, even though there's no justifiable way to believe that the earth is flat. But I'm confusing people by starting to talk about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with it. So items to avoid: divisive topics. You don't want people in the audience to feel multiple different things about your topic. So you would never, in any informal or formal setting, talk about religion and take a slant on it, politics, sex, and other things. Like there are certain topics that are just off limits and you should avoid them. If you were asked to speak from a expert point of view, of course, do that, but don't just bring those things up or add them. Don't use a bunch of acronyms. A lot of people get confused when you throw a bunch of technical acronyms into it. I heard about a lady once who thought that LOL meant lots of love, and so she was adding LOL at the end of posts she was making on people saying that, oh, my mom had died, and it's like, oh, I loved your mom, LOL. It's like, oh, my grandpa just died. Here's a story about my grandpa. Oh, your grandpa sounds like such a great guy. LOL. Sorry for your loss. LOL. You need to know that acronyms are not always well known by your audience. Don't use slang in formal settings. The quickest way for somebody to presume you have less knowledge than you do is by using a lot of slang instead of standard academic English. Overly technical talk is the same as acronyms. You would not want to confuse your audience who aren't aware of the more minute aspects of what you're talking about. Anything unsubstantiated goes along with the gossip and rumors. And then filler words. Try and avoid using like, and then drifting off into things like that. It's very common for public speakers to do that. And I remember a teacher I had in 9th grade that I counted the amount of times she said, okay. She said that 56 times in one period, and it drove me up a wall. I don't even know what the point of the lesson she was trying to teach was, because all I could think about was the next time she was going to say, okay, open your books, okay, we're going to learn about geography, okay. It was extremely distracting. Avoid that at all costs. And then there's also distracting visual aids. Currently, you guys are looking at this screenshot, or my screen that I've developed. But what happened if instead of this, I'm at the front of the classroom and I've printed off just a visual aid for you guys to look at? Would you be looking at me and paying attention to me, or would you be looking at that visual aid? Abby, what do you think?
I mean, probably a mix of both, but probably drawn to the visual aid most.
Right. Now, there's a great way to distribute information like that. It would be at the end of what you're doing. If you do it at the beginning, then the focus will be on that, just the visual aid. They'll pull it up in front of them, they'll be looking at it, they'll be looking at the colors, the message, etc. And you will then be secondary, or at least you'll be sharing time in their minds. So don't do it. And then how to close. And the end is the beginning, is the end, is the beginning, is the end of the beginning. Focus on your goal. What was your goal? Summarize your main points. Make any recommendations if it's to inform. Where else can they go to learn more about the subject? If it's to persuade them to come to your point of view. If it's to entertain, that's the only part where I can't, make any recommendations. But basically, if you're giving a speech, if you're talking formally or informally to anybody, the best way to do it is by close that way. Thank them for their time. Everybody's time is precious, and if you're wasting someone's time, they can never get that back. And then do a backflip. No, do not actually do this. Unless you're at a backflipping convention and you've been asked to speak, don't do a backflip to close your speech. We're going to watch a quick video. We have about 4 minutes left. And this is the I Have a Dream speech that Lydia remembered right off the top of her head about the speech that she had seen. We're just going to watch 1 minute of it. This is the very beginning. If it loads.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
Why is this speech so powerful? It's cited the world over as being one of the most famous speeches ever given. Why do we consider this to be such a powerful speech? Lydia, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a powerful speech because it's talking about freedom for people who have not had it and haven't had it for long. It's about like a movement of getting that freedom and getting that freedom of being able to do things that white people were able to do that they weren't able to do. It's like also just like kind of like culturally be able to somewhat be one and not seen as two different types of groups and people. That's kind of my point of view on it.
Sure, I like that. Yeah, there are millions of people who lack freedom. He tied it into Abraham Lincoln. He even used similar language. He said 5 score years ago. Instead of saying 100 years ago, he used the same type of language that Lincoln used in the Gettysburg Address. To give some familiarity, to tie his speech into the presence of the statue where they were sitting and standing. There's hundreds of thousands of people in the audience with him. This is a message shared by everybody, and everybody's face is glued on the speaker. Did he have any filler words? Did he say, did he deliver the message powerfully, or was it reserved? It's very powerful. He didn't make any rushing of his delivery. He didn't, I have a dream that one day my children could one day hopefully No, it's everything he says is very deliberate and very paced to be effective. Throughout this speech, he constantly says, "I have a dream." It drums up that sentiment in the listener's ears. He says it over and over and over again. It's a way to call back. It's definitely one of the most powerful speeches of all time for a good reason. He establishes credibility to the event. There's my alarm. I'm going to take just one more minute. He establishes why he's there and the importance of it to bring freedom truly to Black people finally. So we were going to go through a scenario, one of these three scenarios of a speech. And because we're kind of out of time, I want to just summarize that the items we've learned, the nature of being prepared, to knowing what your goal is, what you need to know and what they need to know about your message, and how to close your speech are incredibly important. If you follow these points, you will become a better public speaker, one-on-one communication with your family, with your friends, when you're trying to get a date. If you're delivering a speech in a formal setting, you'll add more credibility. You'll deliver a more effective speech, and you'll get more people persuaded or informed than you would otherwise. Any questions? Fantastic. All right. And I will stop recording.